Good evening. It is Tuesday, April 5th, 2016. My name is Jacob.
And I'm Danielle.
And this is the Proteus Podcast. Ideas in all shapes and sizes. And forms.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Kai. How are you today?
I'm okay. I'm alive. It was a long weekend, and I have an unexpected visitor this week.
Hooray! Who's that?
Alcy.
That's weird.
I know.
How unexpected.
Yeah, Mary asked me about it last week. She was like, "Hey, Alcy's coming to town. Would you show him around?" I was like, "Sure. When is he coming to town?" And I could swear that she said in a couple weeks.
And she said next week.
And what she said is that she said a couple days,
Huh.
but I didn't realize he was in town until he was like, "Hey, I'm in town. Where are we going to get lunch at?" And I'm like, "What? Who is this? I don't have you in my phone."
So I coined a term recently. I refer to it as listening dyslexia. Where you hear the wrong words. You know? It's like dyslexia when you read except with your ears. It's not necessarily a real medically defined thing, but I'm pretty sure some people suffer from listening dyslexia.
Maybe it's like wishful listening.
Or just straight up not paying attention. I've got someone at work that like you'll tell them something and they'll go, "Oh my God, what?" And like, "What do you think I just said?" And then they'll say something outrageous. I'm like, "You don't listen real good, do you? Because that's not what I said."
Yeah, so last night I brought him out to go get a wurst.
Ah, yeah, the worst.
The worst. It's great. And so that was good. And tonight he's resting, so I get an evening off from the hosting duties. And tomorrow night we're going to go get fancy foods.
Ah, yes, fancy foods.
Fancy foods at a place called the Walrus and the Carpenter.
That's a place?
Yeah, it's a place.
Speaking
it's owned
of
by
walruses
the same
and
guy
carpenters,
yeah.
I'm reminded of a Lewis Carroll thing, I think.
Johnny Depp?
No, and there's the bit with and shoes and ships and sealing wax and cabbages and kings and why the sea is boiling hot and whether pigs have wings. Yeah. And it only took me until I was in my mid-20s to realize that it's not wax that you put on your ceiling, it's the sealing wax for sealing envelopes.
Yeah.
I sort of felt retarded when I finally caught that one.
Well, you know, it was written at a time before your time.
Also, we don't much use sealing wax for anything.
No.
You know, it's one of those things when you're trying to be extra fancy that you get some sealing wax and seal something. But I was always puzzled about why you would wax a ceiling up until that point.
Well, some people like their ceilings to be really shiny.
Yeah, it's, you know, it didn't click for quite a while. Also, it took me way, way too long to realize that the newspaper syndicated newspaper comic Sally Forth was sort of also a pun, you know, to Sally Forth.
Yeah, to Sally Forth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, just one of those moments you're like, oh God, I hope how long did it... It's really embarrassing that I didn't get this before this.
How long has this been like this? How long has this been a play on words? Oh God.
My personal favorite, though, and this one I had to learn from someone else, was Ajax dishwashing detergent.
Yeah.
Well, Ajax was the mightiest warrior in all of Greece.
Well,
thus he was stronger than all of Greece.
Yeah, there you go.
So he Ajax was stronger than Greece.
He had that shield that was like, you know.
The point is he's stronger than Greece. And I really kind of wonder just how long someone at that company was waiting for somebody to get that, you know, marketing pun.
Yeah, it's kind of a Ajax, interesting character, right? He had the huge shield that only he could use because it was so huge and massive, and died while using that shield, I think.
Yeah, I'm not up on my Greek mythology, so this one's all you.
Someone's gonna write and they're gonna be pissed off at us. and because I'm gonna go. Someone hewed that shield and killed the mighty Ajax.
Mm.
That's what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say that.
We're gonna get an angry email from the one person that knows our email address.
God, I hope so. So far, nobody cares about us.
Well, it's nice to know that you're hated.
Yeah.
Or at least it's nice to know that the world's indifferent about you.
Yeah, it's nice to know that the world is apathetic about me. Gee, thanks. Thanks, world. Why don't you send me an email? Say that you hate me.
We do welcome your feedback.
No, really, people. Give me feedback. Because I'm just going to keep on sprouting off false things that I think I remember.
Yeah, I'm going to continue to make up facts until someone corrects me.
And hear that cat? That's what happens whenever you don't correct us. The cat starts whining.
See, I've discovered a very important personality flaw of mine. And that is that I can be extremely convincing. So I can just tell people stuff. And unless they're like extremely well educated or paying a lot of attention, they'll be like, wow, I never knew that. And believe me.
Huh.
Most of the time I tell people things that are so outrageous, they're just like, wow, it's like, why would you believe that? I made that up. Really? Yes.
Yeah.
I immediately come clean on it because it's too funny to me, but it's a troublesome thing. It's like apparently I can lie. I don't know. It's very funny. I catch myself. I'm like, I shouldn't tell these people imaginary things. They'll probably believe me.
Hey, would you say that I get sarcasm?
Yeah, I think you are well versed in the art of sarcasm.
Because Krista thinks that my sarcasm sucks. She thinks that I don't get it. But I think it's actually her. I don't think that she gets sarcasm.
I think to a certain degree there are many... Okay, no, that's not true. I think there are a couple forms of sarcasm. And some of us use a meaner form of sarcasm than others, which is not well gotten by some people. Or normal sarcastic people. There's normal sarcastic people, and then there's mean sarcastic people.
Wait, am I mean or normal?
Depends on whether the day ends in Y or not.
Oh, God. That's why no one likes me. I'm mean.
Well, it's not necessarily that you're mean. It's that they might think you're being mean because you're being sarcastic.
This kind of goes along with that. I typically tell people, it's like, there are two types of people in this world. People that like me and people that hate me. There's like next to no... third. I guess there's three types of people. People that haven't met me yet. But from my experiences, people, when they initially meet me, make a judgment call. And they either think I'm amazing or they think I'm the worst person on the planet and they want me to die.
I could go along with that sentiment, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Speaking of types of people in the world, it reminded me of one of the early lines in the science fiction book that I am slowly writing over the course of the next 524 million years. And for some reason, I decided to write the first portion of it from the first person. And the character describes himself. He says, "There's two types of people in the world, and I don't get along with either of them."
All right.
It really sets the tone for a few things. I'm having fun with it when I remember to sit down and work on it, but it's, one of those extraordinarily intermittent projects.
All right. Oh, man. So I've decided that I need to go ahead and write another book.
Yeah? Did you finish the sequel to Black Irish or not?
I did.
Huh.
And I don't like it.
Oh, well, rewrite it then.
No, I don't like either of them anymore.
Rewrite it backwards.
I don't like them. I'm going to write something new.
You don't like that story?
No.
Was there going to be a third, or did you intend to make it a two-parter?
It was like one of those things where you're like, your eyes are bigger than your stomach. And you're like, oh, man, I am going to be the exception to the rule. I'm going to write something. It's going to be picked up, and they're going to want 10 million novels out of me. And then I can quit my job and live a horrible, poor author's life.
That would have been quite the accomplishment to do with the steampunk novel, but Sally Forth.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm not. See, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I was too niche, and I think it's okay. I think it's okay. I think that I could change it and make it into a young adult novel if I ever cared to.
Yeah.
But I think I'm gonna write something different, something more highfalutin with bigger words and philosophy, something about death.
So you're gonna write the next great American novel?
No, no, maybe the
So you're
next.
allow me to rephrase. You're going to write the great American Walden,
Yeah,
the
yeah. There
21st
you go.
century's Walden. There you go.
Yeah,
I've been
21st century
very,
one.
very slowly slogging through Walden because you can only read about 20 pages of it before you start to glass over.
Do you know how many times I had to read that throughout college?
I'm not going to answer that question.
And typically the turnaround time, they're like, okay, read Walden. You have 2 weeks.
That's not right.
Uh, hey, English degrees. Get a master's in English. People are like, all right, here's the book list, and like you're buying all the books. And they're like, oh man,
I
how many
already own
classes are you
Walden.
taking? And I'm like, well, these 9 books are for this course, and that's all I'm buying today. And they're like, how are you gonna read all those novels in one semester? I'm like,
I'm going to read those
this
in one
weekend.
week.
Yeah, I have to read those this weekend because my other classes require equally a lot of books. So, oh
Mm.
God,
Hey, at least you have. Well, here's a English question for you then. Have you ever attempted to read Finnegan's Wake?
no.
I read one page of Finnegan's Wake.
And
It's probably gave me permanent brain damage.
oh yeah, brain damage caused by Finnegan's Wake.
There are words in Finnegan's Wake that haven't been invented yet. According to the author, it's complete rubbish. It's apparently one of the most important novels ever written.
You know, I haven't read it.
It's horrible. It's unreadable, basically. By
So
all standards, it is unreadable. Like it's like Vogon poetry.
Vogon poetry. Oh,
I highly recommend to anyone that doesn't believe me. You can read it on the internet. Go look it up and try to read more than 2 pages of Finnegan's Wake, and then try to come back and explain it to me because I sure can't explain what I read to you.
bonus points if you read it within a week.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't understand
Weird.
it.
Yeah, I've been rereading the first fantasy novels I read as a teenager. And I finished the first trilogy by this author, Dennis McKiernan. And I found out as I went to read his next set of books, the duology that follows the intro trilogy, is that he actually wrote the duology first. And it was after they got accepted by the publisher that he decided to do his original trilogy.
Hmm.
And he had the duology, the Silver Call duology. He had that delayed until he wrote the first 3 books,
Huh.
even though they were already accepted and
So
ready
what you're
to
trying
be
to say is
produced.
he wrote the first 2, then realized this wasn't going to make a damn bit of sense if he didn't write another 3 to go in front of them.
I think he decided that that these 2 books got published, and that if he wrote a 3-story intro trilogy, he would make more money.
Probably a smart man.
Yes, probably.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's funny because I can definitely tell, like, I'm reading through the duology now, and I'm like, yeah, this is actually, I can tell that this bit here was most likely written before this other bit that came before it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of weird things you notice with books.
Mm-hmm. So I've been reading oops, sorry, bumped the microphone. A
Travesty.
travesty. Yeah, I probably have been reading a travesty. It's science fiction novel. 2 science fiction novels. Apparently it's going to be a trilogy. And I'm having to look this up because I can't remember the name of them at all.
Well, mid podcast, Google search.
No, it's much faster to just go directly into my order history on Amazon and figure out what I
Oh,
just
that's
did.
almost worse. You know what? Put a quarter in the jar, man.
What, because I
Podcast
mentioned
faux pas.
Amazon?
No. Because you're doing a lookup in the middle of the podcast.
Yeah, but I managed to do it while you were talking. So it's
Oh.
the first book is Fluency of the Confluence series, and they are written by Jennifer. Wow, I can't pronounce that middle name. Wells. The middle name starts with a.
I don't know. I like that her name is Jennifer. I can't pronounce that middle name Wells.
Yeah, well, they're interesting. They took a rather rapid and unexpected turn that was a really good hook and talked me into buying the second one immediately.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've churned through 2 novels in, what is today, Tuesday? Like 3 days.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it happens when they're good. Well, it's not. I hesitate to say that these are good books because I'm not entirely sure I'm qualified to make that assertion.
In your own unqualified opinion.
In my own highly unqualified opinion, although I did get several A's in my English classes in college, I found them to be fairly innovative science fiction.
Okay.
Like, yeah, there's very few MacGuffins that I was upset with, and that's really science fiction is a series of MacGuffins strung together in an enjoyable way generally.
Oh God, we need this MacGuffin.
Yeah,
now we need that MacGuffin to make this MacGuffin work.
Exactly. You know,
damn,
I think there's a better
MacGuffin.
term for that I can't remember right at the top of my head, but it's
I like
interesting.
the use of a MacGuffin.
Yeah.
You can't get enough MacGuffin.
And then I think I am fixing to read something that you recommended to me at some juncture, which is The Lies of Loch Lamora, The Gentleman Bastards.
The Lives of Loch Lamora?
Lies. Gentleman Bastards, Book 1. It seems like someone, I thought it was you, had recommended to me reading The Gentleman Bastards series.
Gentleman Bastards.
But I neglect to be able to remember. I don't think
that was me.
Let me see who writes this really quick. Scott Lynch.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. It looked entertaining. So it was cheap on Kindle too, so why not?
Kindle. You know,
While I wait for the third book in my science fiction novel series to be released, I'll read these.
So I may be old-fashioned in a lot of ways, but I can't read a book on an e-reader.
I find that I can't do it on the glowy screen e-readers, but the e-inks I have no problem with.
See, it's not so much about how it looks, though I do agree that the e-inks, is that what they're calling them?
Yeah, it's electronic ink.
Okay, those do look better.
Such as the Kindle Paperwhite and so on and so forth. I know how they work.
But I like to feel the book in my hand. I like to have the weight.
I don't disagree. I enjoy a good piece of book.
Also like the smell of a good book.
But often enough, I can get drawn into the story quickly enough that it is of no consequence to me. And for the sheer pure convenience of being able to go, I would like to read that. Click, and then I'm reading. Is instead of having to wait a day and a half to 2 days for a paperback to arrive at my doorstep.
See, I guess that's a benefit of living in Seattle.
Yeah, I got the advantage.
Just go to Elliott Bay Books. I go in, I'm like, I want this book, and they're like, I have it. If it's an older book, I have 3 used bookstores right within easy gettings.
Like I said, you've got the advantage. As for my location, I do really enjoy the ability for me to finish a book and Amazon goes, hey, I see you enjoy this ridiculously large spectrum of interest of novels. Here's this. How about you read that? And I think I'll look. As much as I enjoy perusing through a bookstore and going, I guess that looks interesting, and getting it for a quarter, the Amazon has done a fine job of pointing me to new and interesting authors.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, there's arguments for both sides, and I will do both. If I'm somewhere where I can go into a bookstore, I will probably come out of there with $15 worth of 25-cent novels.
See, but the other thing is I like talking with people about books. So I'll go into a bookstore, and I used to do this in Alpine. Is that bookstore still open in Alpine?
Yes.
Okay. I would go in there, and I would be like, hey, I like these books, like these kind of books. These are the authors I like. I want to read something new. What do you recommend? And then I'd have a conversation with the person selling the books.
Mm-hmm.
And I do that here. And to me, that's like the best way to find a book. Yeah, I may get something that an algorithm generated for me on Amazon, but I want to hear her about what someone else read and why they think it's good and why I should spend the time in reading it.
Yeah, and I'm always taking suggestions that way. I'm not saying that Amazon is superior. I'm just saying it's convenient for me right now.
Okay.
You know, back when I was a kid, we lived a million miles from town and they hadn't invented Amazon e-readers yet. And so we would go to town, you know, once a month and go to the library and get a duffel bag full of books. And it consisted of us just going into the section that we were old enough to read in or be interested in and just picking things out that had an interesting title. And I read just a bizarre spectrum of stuff, which is why I have questions about books I read as a child that I can't remember the titles of, but found really interesting. If anyone's out there's figured out the book with the stuffed lion head that can let you see through time in the future, let me know.
Yeah, we really want to know that.
We still want to know that. Haven't got there yet.
Haven't got there.
Yeah. You know, so, I mean, I really do enjoy doing that. It's just a matter of the library here is not particularly excellent, and the bookstore is nice, but I've read half of that stuff, or it's just not in the or it's just not in my wheelhouse of things that I'm interested in.
You mean that you don't want to read any more about the Big Bend and all the art culture?
Yeah, see, that's some of it. Is while they do have some selection of the types of things I will read, they do cater to a certain crowd.
Tourists?
Yes, mostly.
Hey, look, how quaint. It's a small town bookstore. I bet you they have small town bookstore books about the local area.
Indeed, indeed.
And look, quarter paperbacks. How quaint.
Nevertheless.
I do miss the ability to get a quarter paperback.
There's a few places left.
I did, through Amazon, there was a book I wanted. Old discontinued book, and none of the used bookstores here had it, which is where Amazon really comes through. I bought it from a Goodwill through Amazon that's on the East Coast for a penny.
I got a book from my dad that way. Are you familiar with the artist C.M. Russell?
I believe that we've actually talked about him before. Like in another time and place.
Another time and place. Well, for those of you out there in Radioland who aren't familiar, C.M. Russell was a cowboy artist in the Montana, Wyoming, etc. part of the Americas back in the long days ago, long time. And he did painting, sculpture, just a whole swath of things. And, you know, bronze sculptures, clay sculptures, everything, and some really good paintings, drawings and all that. And because my dad is a real cowboy, he's sort of a fan, you know. He's got, because the nice thing about C.M. Russell is, like, a lot of his work just depicts everyday life of the people in the times of those that he was in. And so it basically is paintings of what my dad does, things like that. So it's, you know, and because it's phenomenal artwork, it's nice to look at. Point is I bought a book on Amazon from like a Goodwill store somewhere on the edge of America. I think I paid $0.25 for this book, and it was a decommissioned library book, and I know that book runs for like $100 now.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's just basically a big book of collection of his artwork. What was neat about it is it shows lots of pieces, and then it tells where they're currently at, like who, or at least when the book was published, who owned them and where it was. a huge portion of it is in a private collection in New York City, which I'm pretty sure C.M. Russell would frown upon, but nevertheless.
Well, maybe, it's... okay, two things. Maybe it's a cowboy in the city. It happens.
Yeah, it happens.
Maybe C.M. Russell just needed money.
Nah, most of it ended up there after he died. But anyways, that's the neat thing about Amazon is you can find wonderful things for good prices, like you say.
Oh, so completely shift topic change.
Okay.
I am thinking about buying a Bob Ross original painting.
You should definitely buy a Happy Little Trees Bob Ross original painting if you can afford it, and it's not going to be a problem.
You can get some of he painted so many things. You can get some of his paintings for like $250.
I am totally for this.
And then I can have like a Bob Ross original hanging in my living room, and people will come in, oh, who painted that? It's Bob Ross.
Bob Ross. I cannot think of a single argument against it. It is a fantastic idea.
I know. So I'm thinking I'm going to do that.
You should totally do that.
I have a quote.
Okay.
Would you like to hear my quote?
Let's hear the quote.
And I picked this prior, but I think since we've been talking about books, it's very apt because Terry Pratchett wrote this in his work, Johnny and the Bomb. Okay. You're not allowed to call them dinosaurs anymore, said Eolus. It's speciesist. You have to call them pre-petroleum persons.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is... I might have read that book at some point because the speciesist thing seems familiar. Well, seeing as we're doing quotes by authors, I suppose this is one of my favorites from Mark Twain. It says, there are some things that can beat smartness and foresight. Awkwardness and stupidity can.
It's a true story.
It really is.
So, Krista finished reading The Adventures of Tom Sawyer.
Oh?
Yeah. And, she was like, is this all of Mark Twain's works like this? I was like, no.
Some of it's much, much better.
Yeah, Mr. Samuel Clemens was actually riffing on a lot of things there. He does read Huckleberry Finn. Huckleberry Finn is more the pragmatic Samuel Clemens point of view of things.
I always preferred Huckleberry Finn over Tom Sawyer.
I think that's because you like realism over the fantastic.
Not even so much that, because I like the fantastic very, very well. I just identify more with Huckleberry Finn than I do with Tom Sawyer.
Okay.
The actual characters.
Mm-hmm.
And found that book to be more enjoyable.
I agree. I like Huckleberry Finn better.
Man.
It gets real.
There's something interesting, I think, that might just be part of the structure of how books were written in those days. Like, I've noticed this with Mark Twain's books and with Jules Verne and a few others that I don't read extensively from that time period because I'm lazy and some of it's hard to read. But I have this thing where they build up a character and then in the very middle, like the middle half of a book from that time period, especially like Huckleberry Finn, or another good example is The Mysterious Island by Jules Verne. The middle half of those books, I'm just enthralled because they've got all these details about what's going on and how great this adventure is. And while there's not particularly a central antagonist, and the protagonist is generally having a good go of it, which is, that's the, well, there's, the antagonist is merely like survival or whatnot. I find that part of the book to be great, and I'm really enjoying it. And then you get to the end, and everything takes sort of a downward turn.
Uh-huh.
And then a lot of those novels sort of end on a downward note, where you're not real sure if the protagonist is going to end up happy at the end. when it and then the book ends, and sometimes there is no clear answer, and I'm always left wishing, boy, I wish the middle of that novel could have gone on forever. I would have read that for years.
Oh.
Other books that do the same thing, Swiss Family Robinson has a similar structure. I had another one in my head and I lost it. Even Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court. He builds up and is very successful, and things are going great, and it's interesting how the things he's building up and doing, and then it all takes a downward spiral at the end.
Such are things in life.
But it's a interesting thing that I've picked out that comes from novels from that time frame. Another one that isn't quite is that old, I don't think, but that I always enjoyed, and I can't remember the author of it. It's the Coral Island is the name of the book, and the gist of it is 3 guys get stranded on a coral island. They're shipwrecked there, and it's very much in the same vein as the Mysterious Island by Verne or whatever. They're building up their little civilization.
That was written by R.M. Ballantyne in 1858.
Okay, so it almost is from the same time frame.
Yeah.
And it's, beset by adversity, these main protagonists build up a civilization unto themselves. And then everything goes to pot and spirals downwards to the end of the story. and you're a little disappointed that they didn't just stay there in the middle.
Well, I think I like that, me personally, because things can't stay perfect forever.
It's true, but it's an interesting structure that we seem to have veered away from in more recent times in novel structure. We've really leaned into the happy ending and things turning out well for all of the important characters.
I don't know. I read a lot of books where there are bittersweet endings or ending of a question.
There's a few out there like that, but a huge portion of just, I want to say pulp fiction, but just general fiction, mass market fiction, doesn't do that. And if it does, it leans itself into a sequel and then maybe another sequel until something finally ends happily.
Yeah. Well, okay. How bitter are you?
Today? How bitter and jaded am I?
Yeah, how
I'm back
bitter
up to
and
like
jaded.
a 7 because my leg hurts again.
Oh, man, leg and back stuff. You are not having the month.
It's been a little on the unpleasant side, but either it will get better or it won't. So that'll be cool too.
I am at a 4. I think I'm solidly at a 4.
And if you get that Bob Ross painting, it'll knock you down to like a 2.
Man, if I get that Bob Ross painting, I think I'll be at a 0.
0 jaded.
I'm just going to put that above my desk, and whenever I start to get angry or I look at an argument on the internet, I'm going to look up and be like, oh, happy little clouds.
That seems like just the right thing to do. That's the way I am with the giant Calvin and Hobbes poster I have. Sometimes I just stand there and look at it and feel better about life.
All right. Well, I think that's it. That's all I have for today.
I think you're right. That's all I have. My name is... Oh, go ahead.
Everybody, if you listen to us, even just once, and you have an impression, send us an email.
And review us on iTunes.
Review us on iTunes, on Stitcher, wherever you may find us.
Follow us on Twitter if you want to get updated when the new podcast goes live.
Yeah, that'd be great. And what's our Twitter feed?
Proteus Podcast.
Great. And what's our email?
ProteusPodcast@gmail.com.
There you go. It's that easy.
Drop us a line anytime. I'm Jacob.
And I'm still Danielle.
And we have been the Proteus Podcast. Good night.
Good night.